Is Labour on the brink of collapse? Voters are abandoning the party faster than Keir Starmer can rewrite his manifesto. But how serious is the fallout? Let's dive into the harsh realities of Starmer's leadership and its devastating impact on Labour's support. From immigration to public safety, every misstep has chipped away at their voter base. The numbers tell a shocking story. When Starmer entered number 10, he carried the weight of hope and ambition. Labour supporters believed he was the leader to usher in change. But now, just months later, those hopes have faded. 5 months ago, Starmer's approval rating sat at 33%. Today, it has nosedived to a net approval of -32%, a dramatic 65-point collapse that has left observers stunned. So, what went wrong? Former loyalists feel betrayed. Lifelong Labour voter John from Manchester says, he's just another politician making promises he won't keep. This sentiment echoes nationwide. Labour's traditional stronghold, the working class, feels abandoned. They accuse Starmer's leadership of prioritising political manoeuvring over critical issues like jobs, the economy, and public services. What was once a solid base now feels like quicksand. The party faces a crisis of confidence. Starmer, once seen as Labour's saviour, now seems more like their Achilles heel. Labour's financial woes only make matters worse. Walking into number 10 with bold ambitions, they've run into a budget crisis of monumental proportions. Facing a massive shortfall, the government is left with unappealing options: slashing public services or hiking taxes, both of which risk alienating voters further. Social media is ablaze with criticism, branding Labour's financial handling as a catastrophic blunder. Opposition leader Kemi Badenoch hasn't held back, mocking Labour for promising the world while lacking a clear plan to deliver it. It's a spectacle, but for Labour, it's a nightmare. Starmer's team is now backtracking on campaign promises at lightning speed. Plans for enhanced public services and welfare are being scaled down, sparking further outrage. Chancellor Rachel Reeves' proposed tax hikes and means testing for the winter fuel allowance have only fueled the fire, leaving pensioners and voters alike feeling betrayed. This chaos is a combination of inherited challenges and self-inflicted wounds. Labour's missteps have left them in damage control mode, with every decision potentially costing more support. It's like plugging leaks in a sinking ship. No matter what they do, the damage keeps spreading. The big question is, can Labour recover from this turmoil? Tough choices lie ahead, but with trust eroding and voters slipping away, the road back to stability looks treacherous. Stay tuned, Labour's journey through this political storm is far from over. Labour's latest policy shift is leaving pensioners out in the cold, literally. They're introducing means testing for the winter fuel allowance, forcing the elderly to prove their financial struggles just to stay warm. This move impacts over 1.5 million pensioners and has sparked outrage among advocacy groups, who are calling it a betrayal of society's most vulnerable. Even within Labour, discontent is growing. Diane Abbott didn't hold back, criticising Starmer for abandoning the party's principles. Meanwhile, the opposition is capitalising on the chaos, labelling Labour as promise breakers willing to sacrifice the vulnerable to fix their financial missteps. Labour claims the cuts are unavoidable, part of their strategy to fill a £22 billion budget deficit. They estimate this change will save £1 billion annually, but at what cost? Trust in the party is eroding fast, with critics arguing this policy embodies Labour's broken promises and lack of foresight. And this is just the beginning. Pensioners are only the first to feel Labour's cold shoulder, with more discontent brewing in unexpected quarters. Labour's inheritance tax proposal for farmers has triggered a massive backlash in rural Britain. Thousands of farmers, concerned about the future of family-run farms, marched on London to protest. For many, this isn't just about tax, it's about safeguarding a way of life. Agricultural leaders warn that Labour's changes could lead to job losses, reduced investment, and the breakup of family farms. This misstep is alienating rural voters and exposing Labour's disconnection from working communities. What was once a steady but cautious relationship with the countryside is now in freefall. Labour's recent actions have also chipped away at Keir Starmer's carefully curated image of integrity. The controversy began when Starmer accepted free football tickets worth £1,000, a striking contradiction to his past statements against politicians taking gifts. Public trust has taken a hit. Social media erupted with accusations of hypocrisy, and even Labour MPs joined the chorus. Diane Abbott called it poor judgment, while opposition leaders gleefully pointed out Starmer's apparent double standards. The damage to Starmer's reputation is significant. He was supposed to embody a cleaner, more principled alternative to past leadership. But now, voters are questioning whether he's any different. And then there's immigration, Labour's next headache. Since Starmer took office, more than 20,000 migrants have crossed the Channel. Public frustration is mounting, and critics say Labour's lack of a coherent immigration policy has exacerbated the problem. From pensioners to rural communities and beyond, Labour is losing ground on multiple fronts. Starmer, once seen as a beacon of hope, now faces mounting challenges that threaten to unravel the party's support. And this is far from over. Labour's growing list of missteps is sure to spark further controversy. Remember Labour's promises about fixing illegal immigration. Those bold declarations seem to have vanished, leaving behind some staggering statistics. In the year to June 2023, a massive *906,000 people entered the UK. The following year, the number dropped to 728,000, but even that's still alarmingly high. The public isn't pleased. Frustration is mounting as voters demand real change, not business as usual. Labour finds itself caught in the crossfire. Critics on the right accuse them of being too lenient, while the left chastises them for failing to support migrants adequately. So what's Labour's strategy? So far, it's all talk with no concrete action. Keir Starmer has shifted the blame onto his predecessors, calling the situation an inherited mess. But after months in power, that excuse is wearing thin. Sooner or later, he has to own the problem. The immigration issue is eroding Labour's support, leaving voters questioning their ability to handle the nation's challenges. If they can't address this, what hope is there for tackling anything else? And as the pressure builds, Labour's troubles only deepen. Labour's internal struggles. The party is also battling internal dissent. The left wing of Labour is openly rebelling, accusing Starmer of betraying core values. Controversies like the winter fuel allowance cuts and inheritance tax changes for farmers have only fueled the discontent. For many, the issue goes beyond individual policies. Critics within the party argue that Starmer lacks bold, progressive ideas, and his leadership feels disconnected from Labour's traditional principles. Diane Abbott has been especially vocal, calling out what she sees as poor judgment and a departure from the party's mission. This infighting is a disaster for Labour's electoral prospects. Voters watching the party fracture are losing confidence in its ability to govern. Labour appears more focused on internal squabbles than presenting a united front against the Conservatives. Can Starmer bridge the gap between his centrist leadership and the demands of the left? Or is Labour headed for an internal meltdown that could cost them the next election? The Sue Gray controversy. As if internal chaos wasn't enough, Starmer's decision to appoint Sue Gray has created a new storm. What was meant to highlight Labour's ethical leadership has instead raised allegations of political bias. Critics are questioning whether Gray's appointment compromises civil service impartiality, a cornerstone of public trust. The backlash is intense. Opposition parties accuse Labour of hypocrisy in playing politics, tarnishing their reputation as the party of integrity. Some are even branding this a corruption scandal, turning Labour's ethics narrative on its head. This misstep has left voters wondering if Labour is any different from the political establishments they claim to oppose. Their carefully crafted image of transparency and accountability is crumbling. A new scandal emerges. Just when things couldn't get worse, Labour has found itself in yet another debacle. Former Transport Secretary Louise Haigh has resigned following revelations of a decade-old fraud charge. She falsely claimed her work phone was stolen during a mugging, a serious red flag for someone overseeing national transport. The real shock: Starmer knew about her questionable past and still appointed her. This decision is now raising major questions about his judgment and the competence of his leadership team. Labour's cascade of controversies, from immigration mishandling to internal discord and scandal, has left voters skeptical of their ability to lead. With trust eroding and mistakes piling up, Labour's challenges are only just beginning. Labour's ongoing struggles have left Keir Starmer's leadership in serious doubt. The party has been plagued by scandals, policy missteps, and a rapid decline in public confidence. The recent resignation of Louise Haigh, Labour's former Transport Secretary, over a decade-old fraud charge, has only added fuel to the fire. Haigh admitted to fabricating a story about her work phone being stolen, a revelation that has raised questions about her integrity. What's worse, Starmer reportedly knew about her past before appointing her, a decision that has drawn criticism from all sides. The opposition, led by Kemi Badenoch, has used this scandal to paint Labour as reckless and untrustworthy, further damaging the party's reputation. Labour's policy platform, once seen as a beacon of change, is also under fire. Economists have criticised Starmer's economic growth projections as unrealistic, given the current global market volatility. Similarly, his promises to reduce NHS waiting times are being dismissed as unattainable without substantial funding increases, which Labour has not outlined. Environmentalists, too, have slammed the party's green energy targets as inadequate, arguing they fail to meet the urgency of the climate crisis. Additionally, Labour's silence on the housing crisis and cost of living issues has left many voters disillusioned, further eroding trust in the party's ability to address real-world concerns. Starmer's leadership is not just facing external criticism but internal dissent as well. Reports suggest growing divisions within the party, with some members of his shadow cabinet feeling blindsided by his policy decisions. This lack of cohesion is making it harder for Labour to present a united front at a time when voters are closely scrutinising their every move. These issues are reflected in Labour's crumbling support across key demographics. Starmer's personal approval rating has plummeted from plus 33% just months ago to minus 32%, a staggering 65-point drop. Working-class voters, young professionals, and pensioners alike are turning away from Labour, disheartened by broken promises, poor judgment, and a lack of clarity in policy. The party is also grappling with broader crises, such as the £22 billion budget gap and a poorly managed immigration situation, which have left voters questioning whether Labour is any different from its predecessors. The continuous stream of scandals, U-turns, and mismanagement has created a crisis of confidence that threatens to undermine Labour's chances in the next election. With the party in disarray and its approval ratings in freefall, the road ahead for Labour looks increasingly challenging. Whether Starmer can regain voter trust and bring stability to his leadership remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: Labour cannot afford to continue on its current trajectory. Labour's troubles are mounting, and with the next general election on the horizon, their future looks uncertain. Keir Starmer's leadership has been shaken by a mix of scandals, policy missteps, and declining public trust, resulting in a steep drop in approval ratings. Once enjoying a positive rating of 33%, Starmer now faces a disastrous minus 32%, a 65-point plunge that reflects growing disillusionment among voters. Former Labour supporters are expressing their frustrations openly. John from Manchester, a lifelong Labour voter, lamented, "I thought Starmer was different, but he's just another politician breaking promises left and right." This sentiment echoes across the electorate, with pensioners feeling betrayed by proposed cuts to the winter fuel allowance, working families frustrated by rising taxes, and the broader public disillusioned by Labour's inability to address critical issues like immigration and the cost of living. Adding to Labour's woes is a series of scandals, including Freebiegate, where Starmer accepted football tickets, casting doubt on his commitment to integrity. The resignation of former Transport Secretary Louise Haigh over a past fraud charge further undermined public confidence, especially as it emerged Starmer knew of her history before appointing her. Labour's policy platform has also come under fire. Economists have dismissed Starmer's growth targets as unrealistic, while medical professionals have flagged his NHS promises as unattainable without a clear funding plan. Environmentalists have criticised his green energy goals as insufficient to meet urgent climate deadlines. Meanwhile, Labour's silence on housing and living costs has alienated key voter groups, from the working class to young professionals. The consequences of these failings are stark. Analysts warn Labour could face its worst defeat in decades, with predictions of losing key seats and possibly dropping below 200 MPs. Such a result would not just lose them the election, it could marginalise the party for a generation. To recover, experts suggest Labour needs to overhaul its communication strategy, reconnect with core voters, and offer clear, actionable policies on the economy, public services, and other pressing issues. However, even with drastic changes, the damage to Labour's credibility may already be too severe. The next election could mark a turning point, not just for Labour but for British politics as a whole. Whether Starmer can salvage his leadership and regain public trust remains to be seen. For now, Labour faces an uphill battle, with time running out and its future hanging in the balance.